Hello, 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 everybody. Tyler James with Comics Launch here, and I have a good one for you. On this stream, we are going to be doing a conversation, an interview with a couple of creators that I know very well and that I'm excited to talk about their new comic book venture. Before we bring them on, though, since it is a launch month over here at Comics Tribe, I just did want to give a quick plug in to the current project that we have live over on Kickstarter. It's called Sync Just Desserts. It is what's new is the 14th and 15th chapter of our ongoing crime horror saga series. This is a book that is written by award-winning writer John Lees, drawn by superstar horror artist Alex Cormack, and lettered by Sean Lee. I am publishing this bad boy once again. And yeah, we're having a lot of fun with it. Once again, we challenged Alex to do a set of connecting covers. And so the standard edition cover, you can choose your favorite one from 4 different cover images, or you can go ahead and get them all, and they connect to make one outstanding, awesome image. So we're really excited about that. We're also rocking a few specialty variants. We have, again, there's the connected cover. We have a lenticular that is super cool that will be Mr. Dig transforming into clowns. And we also have, as we've been doing, a limited edition metal cover. So lots of cool stuff. We have already unlocked 2 of 5 stretch goals, over 16K today, as of today. And we're heading into the second week starting tomorrow. So love to have you jump on comicstribe.com/sync, or just search for Sync on Kickstarter. You will find us there. All right. So plug is out of the way. And now it's time to bring on my buddies. My guests today are the co-founders of Commonwealth Comics. We have with me Ryan Kroboth, who is a cartoonist, a comic book colorist, whose credits include Sunmaker, Crossover Division, and participation in numerous anthologies. And he's currently coloring and co-writing Wurst Mayhem with John Edingfield II, who is also a cartoonist. He is best known for his series Rancidville. He's also the editor of the acclaimed anthology Not So Fair Tales, and he is drawing and co-writing Wurst Mayhem with Ryan. Welcome, Ryan and John. How you guys doing today?
Good. Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks for having us.
We're just going to have you come on and introduce us for every podcast from now on.
How about it? That's awesome.
I'll tell you what. I will make that a clip for you as the kids do these days. We'll clip it up, and you can just play that anytime. Guys, introduce yourself, and you can play that, and that's awesome. Give me a plug as well.
We'll just lip sync to it.
Exactly. Maybe it'll become a trending TikTok. The Zoomers will be mouthing out, "Hey, I'm Ryan Kroboth."
That's great.
Good to have you all here. I'm excited to talk to you because you guys also have an awesome project on the Kickstarter right now. It's a book called Wurst Mayhem, and we're gonna dive deep into this series and just how this collaboration has come about. But for those that haven't checked it out yet, what can you tell us about Wurst Mayhem?
Well, as the tagline says, it's 2 rogue mercenaries must outwit wizards and thieves to break the curse of a mythical creature. And it's their second book in the series, and it is a medieval caustic adventure that has a lot of gore, a lot of humor, and a crap ton of bad language. And it is probably the most creative and fun project that I've ever worked on. So,
anything to add to that, Ryan?
It's just 2 friends trying to make each other laugh as we're making our own books. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that. I am lucky enough to have right here a copy of issue 1. And so I was excited to see you guys. And I know this was part of the plan to get issue 1 out into backers' hands and be right back there on Kickstarter with an issue 2 shortly after. So congrats on doing that, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on to that. But maybe starting with Ryan, like you guys have been friends and collaborators in one form or another for a long time. What's the origin story of the John and Ryan friendship?
So, gosh, now I feel like it was 2014 that we joined an online, a massive online open course from, what was it, makingcomics.com, right?
Yep.
It's been a long time now. And it was basically an online call for people who've never really made a comic book before. And you come in, you do a couple different short class things, and you get feedback. I remember seeing it from Jim Zub, and that's where I saw it on DeviantArt, and I ended up signing up for this thing. And John was in the class too. He wasn't in my group, but there was within the groups you could talk to each other, but then there was also the whole entire class, you could have an open forum. And John used to comment in the open forum to everybody, and I would go in there too. And we ended up chatting here and there. And I think we started following each other on Twitter, and we'd shoot each other a DM once in a while. And then, hey, how's that book coming along? And we just kept talking more and more. And all of our goals were pretty much exactly in line. And everything that I needed to work on is what John would be working on. So we'd be like, oh, hey, let's do this. And what ended up happening is that we were talking to each other. We would be pushing each other to the next level. And, it was almost like a competition sort of in the beginning, hey, I'm signing up for this thing. Hey, I'm getting this done. Hey, I'm doing this thing. And every time one of us would take a step, the other person would follow. Actually, I had an invitation to list launch shortly after that opened up. And I had signed up for list launch, and it was so cool. I immediately was like, hey, John, you need to try this out. And, since John takes this stuff as seriously as I was at the time, we both thought it was a really great idea. So we both signed up for list launch. When Comics Launch opened up and it was taking some invitations, I signed up, and I was like, John, you got to sign up. Yeah. And it's pretty much ever since then. It's one of us does something, the other person does something, we would catch up. And, it's been that way ever since.
Yeah.
That's awesome to hear. And I think for a lot of people, especially if you're just trying to get into the world of comics, it can kind of feel like, well, everybody knows something. Everybody knows all the secrets, and you don't necessarily know them all. So I can only imagine, John, how helpful it was to have somebody that was sort of starting around the same spot as you, that you could, run stuff by. What do you think it was that made it so that you and Ryan kind of really hit it off on the virtual forums? And then how long was it before you guys ended up meeting up at a convention or something?
Well, yeah, so it was all of 2014, from April till early 2015. We basically DM'd each other through Twitter. And then I am not a huge fan of technology sometimes, so I just reached out to him and said, hey, do you mind if we just exchange phone numbers and we can text each other so I don't have to go into Twitter every time I want to talk to you and, wait for you to go onto Twitter to reply. And so then so we exchanged that. And then it was soon after that when he got into list launch, it was around November, you had a Black Friday sale for the list launch course. And I signed up for list launch, and then we immediately went into comics launch. And we ran our what we were planning to do when we learned from comics launch was to try to promote each other for our Kickstarters. And it was soon after that we actually met at the mall over here by my house. And we sat in the mall and had a little jam session where we were sketching in the little food court in the mall, and people were coming up and looking at us, and we actually came up with a collaborative piece for our Kickstarters. And then that's when we decided that we were going to run our Kickstarters, even though we weren't together, we were going to run them simultaneously and promote each other on the Kickstarter. And then we've done that ever since. So every Kickstarter that we ran, we did that simultaneously. He ran Sunmaker, I ran Rancidville, and our friendship just kept growing from there. And one of the biggest things that drew me to Ryan was his honesty and his feedback. So a lot of people will look at your stuff and go, oh, that's great, that's awesome, it's great. And Ryan will look at it and go, hey, you know, that's awesome, but you know, you could make it better if maybe you fix this bit of your anatomy, or maybe you did this. And he was very open and very honest and never condescending, just wanting to help. And I love that so much. You know, I get tired of the over flattery stuff. I want somebody to tell me, hey, you know what, that's good, but it could be better, right? Yeah. And he does that all the time.
Well, that's awesome to hear. And yeah, you know, I remember seeing you guys with that first launch that you each did, launching simultaneously, planning to end around the same time.
Yep.
And I just thought that was such a cool thing to do. You know, and it's taken me back like a while, but you know, when I first started Comics Launch, and you guys may have even participated in like one of the first surveys that I sent out. But one of the things that surprised me and that I got back was just people saying that like how lonely it kind of felt to be in the middle of a Kickstarter campaign, right, and to feel like you're the only one that's like pushing a boulder up a hill and you're shouting to the void. And it's like, it was an odd experience. And so I've shared the example of, you know, why launch alone if you can find someone else to launch around the same time, having that sort of, that camaraderie, and obviously that led to the Comics Launch back channel, which we have for our pro members, so that like, hey, you know, if you're launching, there's at least a couple dozen other creators that are going through it with you that you're just like, you know, one quick message or text away from. So but I love that the level that you guys took it to, and that you decided to you know, keep that up even after that first launch.
Right.
So now I know part of that was like you were both working on sort of three issue series. You both kind of completed those series along with other projects relatively the same time. And so when those big commitments were done, at what point or how far along were you that you started talking about, well, hey, maybe the next big thing that we should work on is something together that ultimately became Wurst Mayhem?
I just think that it's so nice that everybody thinks we finished the books at the same time. John was done forever, and he actually waited for me. That's how nice he is. He waited like a whole year and a half that his book was done. He's like, I am not launching the book until you're done. So it was his famous quote of gentle pressure relentlessly applied.
That's it. Gentle pressure, relentlessly applied.
Well, that gave you the opportunity to put together that anthology, though, right, John? So
yeah. So while we were waiting, I worked on the anthology, and Ryan actually, you know, I slowed him down a bit more because he did a story in that anthology as well. You know, on top of all the other stuff that he does, you know, so we had talked from. Probably issue 2. So issue 2 of Rancidville, issue 2 of Sunmaker, of collaborating on a project together. So it's been a long time that we talked about that. But it didn't really come to fruition until after we finished our respective projects and we were trying to decide what we were going to do next. Now, for me, I'm a kind of a one project type of guy. It's very difficult for me to work on multiple things. I got a lot of other stuff going on. And so I try to focus and niche down on just one thing at a time. Ryan does a whole bunch of other stuff. He's coloring Crossover Division. He's done covers for Comics Tribe. He's done covers for other people. He's done some other short stories. You know, he's awesome. He's a machine. But I didn't really have anything else that I was working on. And so we were kind of, I was doodling in a sketchbook, and I hate the word doodling, but I was scribbling and sketching in a sketchbook, different things. They were just medieval props, right? I had a barrel and a cup and a knife and a sword and a bag and a little baby dragon in a bassinet, because I thought that was funny. And then I was toying around with the idea of the characters' names were Wurst and Mayhem, but I didn't have a spot for them yet. And then Ryan looked at the stuff and goes, "Well, there's your next project." And we had this little jam session, kind of like what we're doing now over a video call, where we just started trying to make each other laugh of the most stupid things we could come up with that these characters would do. And we tried to make each other laugh. And every time we laughed, I'd write it down in a book. I have a little book here. That's the Wurst and Mayhem story Bible. And I would scribble it down in there. And then we would try to string a story together. And we knew we had some really good stuff when we were laughing so hard that our sides were hurting. I mean, I was practically crying. It was so yeah. We've always wanted to work together, but this was that opportunity. And then obviously it just springboarded into creating an imprint, which is where we're at now.
Yeah. And, one of the fun sort of hooks or premises of Wurst and Mayhem is you have your two main characters who, one of them more than the other, really doesn't want to have anything to do with the other, but they're cursed to be within, I don't know, 20 feet of each other at all times until they pay off their debts. And so I can only imagine how much fun it was just to come up with various ways that hook could play out in funny ways, or as when you read the book, sometimes they use it to their advantage, which is kind of cool. Yeah,
that was the best. That was Ryan. You should talk about that. That was the bet. That whole scene was fantastic.
I don't want to spoil it.
Okay, then we won't spoil it. But the scene that particularly that you're talking about, our editor James was reluctant when we had it in the script, because he just couldn't visualize how we were going to pull it off. He just couldn't visualize it. And we're like, don't worry. We already have a sketch of it. Ryan had already done a sketch of it.
Before I even pitched it to John, I drew it out.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun.
That's kind of interesting. So I'm just curious on this. I mean, you just showed off the Wurst and Mayhem story Bible. It sounds like Zoom calls to talk over ideas. How are you working on scripts together? Are you kind of doing it Marvel style? What does this process look like to go from a Zoom call to actually finished work on a page, especially because you're both cartoonists, you both think visually, but still you got to get on the same page about this. Can you talk a little bit about that, John?
Sure. So what happens is we start with an outline. So we come up with just a bunch of stupid random ideas. What will these characters do? And we do that on a Zoom call, and we start with an outline. So we basically want to find the hook right away and then plan it out. And then from there, one of us, it doesn't matter which one, so like starts writing the story. If I have a really great idea on how to string all of these ideas together, I'll tell Ryan, hey, I'm working on it. And then the same with Ryan. So issue 1 was practically written over one Zoom call. I mean, we had that thing down pretty tight. There was just a couple of things that James interjected with that made it so much better. He's our editor, James Powell. And issue 2, I wrote, and then Ryan reviews it. So what normally happens is if one of us writes it, the other one then does draft 2. So I would do draft 1, then Ryan would do draft 2, then we would send, and at the draft 2 point is when we send it to James. So we want to make sure that all of our ideas are in there together as a team, and then James gets the second draft, and then he sends it back to us, and then one of us does the editing on it, you know, and we normally do another Zoom call, and we normally we basically do a call every week. Not just because we're working on that, just because we love hanging out. And even though we're so close, it's just easier to do it this way, you know. And then from there, once we get the third draft done, we normally don't need the draft 4 is the final version, and I go right into pencils. In between there, if Ryan has an idea or I have an idea, we normally sketch that out for each other and say, what do you think this, or how do you think this should work? And so it's really an intuitive, very fun, no pressure process. And it's worked. We just spent Saturday at the Lehigh Valley Comic-Con, where we basically outlined and came up with most of the hooks for issue 6. So that's how far ahead we are now. We've launched issue 2. I'm 3/4 of the way done drawing issue 3. Issue 4's final draft is done. Issue 5 needs to go to James. It's finished, but it needs to go to James. And issue 6 we're writing now. So, and this was originally just going to be a one-off. When this started, we're like, well, this is an in-between project, you know, until something comes along and I figure out what I really want to do. And now this is all I want to do.
That's awesome.
And it was just like kind of based off of those calls too. Like,
yeah,
we came up with the ending of the book. And when I pitched that to John, and it was basically a joke, but I was like, you know, that could be the hook for the whole series. And then we just started snowballing more stupid ideas. And our whole idea is that we don't say no to anything. We might say not now, but we don't say no.
Right.
The yes and improv style. Yep. I love it.
It all goes in that book. It all goes in the book.
And it seems like that's very much in line with just like the D&D ethos and vibe that you're trying to cultivate with the book.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I was gonna say, and sometimes it's not even just us. Like our letterer Dave Lentz, sometimes he will literally ad lib lines that we have in the script, and he'll just change them, and then we'll read them, and they're so funny, and then they're in the book.
Yep. Exactly.
So you obviously got cranking on this, collaborating on it, feeling really good about it. But it's one thing to sort of work together on a little project. Another thing to, all right, hey, we're going to brand a whole imprint around this thing. What were some of the conversations that you had leading up to that, and how did you sort of come to the point that, like, all right, let's treat this as a whole new venture, even above Wurst Mayhem?
I mean, so some of it is because now we're no longer doing our own projects. When we were running the Kickstarters, when I was doing Sunmaker, I could do that through my bank account, and John could do that through his. So if we're doing something together, it makes it really difficult for us to be like, all right, well, whose money is the Kickstarter money going into? Who's going to be paying those taxes? Who's going to be paying for the letterer? So we discussed it, and it made the most sense for us to have it coming from one point. And we're trying to build it so that way we're not paying for anything outside. Like we're trying to build it that each thing starts funding into the next issue. Like it's going in and it's paying for the variant cover artist, or it's paying for the letterer, or whatever it is. So that way it's hopefully going to snowball, and then that way it can sustain itself, and rather than us having to kind of carry it along. And John's so good at planning all this stuff. Like I was making a joke the other day where, somebody commented on our Facebook profile about the branding, and I was like, yeah, John's going to start a course and I'm going to be the first guy to sign up for it. Like John's like super on point with this stuff. Like,
thank you.
Well, that's great to hear. And obviously, yeah, there are all these little logistics about, well, here's the team and how do we make those decisions? And it does help to just sort of at the start, well begun is half done. Right.
Right.
So glad to hear that. What like, were there anything else that you can think of, John, that you had to like really iron out before, beyond just like a handshake deal from somebody that you know and like?
Oh yeah. So so I messed up the LLC filing when we first started the business. So the whole point of this was to start an LLC that was separate from our personal money, that had its own bank account, and that it would do everything on its own. So we both invested about the equal amounts to the first book to get that rolling, by paying the editor and paying the letterist and paying the flatter and all of those things. And we knew that we were going to do that, and then from the first Kickstarter on, it should be self-funding. So when I filed the LLC, for whatever reason, I only put Ryan's name on it. So when all the paperwork came back, it was all 100% Ryan. And then we had to file an amendment, and I had to wait for that amendment to come in before we could get stuff done. In the meantime, when we opened the bank account, they put me on the bank account, but then I could only do so many things because I wasn't the owner, only Ryan was. So then when we got to the point of actually paying the vendor for the printing, which was in China, and they only take a wire transfer, Ryan and I had to get together to go to the bank together to do it. So yeah, it was a learning curve for us on setting up a new business, right? And getting all of those things ironed out. Managing a budget and being a taskmaster, that's kind of what I do at work. Right. So that was, and I know I'm the weirdo. I love spreadsheets, and I love working on spreadsheets, and I love using them and creating macros. And so, that was all very fun for me, but the actual business filing was a pain, and PA is easy, but not, so we live in Pennsylvania, hence the name Commonwealth Comics. Their filing is easy, but their amendment process is not. So it was a huge learning curve for us. And then we actually hired a tax person to talk to us about taxes, because that's the other thing we weren't sure of. How do we pay taxes on the LLC, especially, we are really trying to make sure that we spend every cent within the same calendar year, because even as an LLC, we will be hit with the money that is left over in the account. So one of the things that we found out was that the business itself doesn't pay taxes as an LLC. Whatever's left,
the owner, right?
Yeah, whatever's left is passed equally to the owners. So that's one of the reasons why we had to get the amendment done as soon as possible. So, because, Ryan would be hit with them all at the end of the year, which it's not going to be an issue, because we spend every dime, but, yeah. So there was some challenges. It wasn't as straightforward as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I know like the LLC process is a little bit different in every state. So
yes,
but at least you're both living in Pennsylvania, which makes it, I guess, a little bit easier. But
yeah. And we don't have to worry about payroll taxes or anything like that. We don't have to worry about quarterly taxes, because we don't have any of that. It's just a matter of making sure that the business is all on the up and up when we're done. And that was again, that was my first blunder in this whole thing, was just making it all Ryan.
Oh, that was the second blunder.
What was the first one?
We made all the marketing stuff with Commonwealth Comics, and that one was taken. So that's why it has the X.
You're right. That was the second one.
So you had to go back and redo all the covers.
Yeah, I had to go fix all of the trade dress on all of the covers and everything else. You were right. That was the second blunder. So that's why it's with an X, because for whatever reason there is a store in Pennsylvania somewhere that's named Commonwealth Comics ICS, and we couldn't own it. But I figured, I made everything that way. I made our logo that way. I did everything that way, and then I had to go in and fix it all.
It was because it passed the Google search.
Yeah, it
when
did.
we Googled it, there was nothing. But when we went to file it, we were like, and like, it was literally, I showed up at his house and we did all this stuff and it just didn't go through.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. The things that you find when you actually start doing a venture for real.
Yeah.
But these make for great stories and great pitfalls for creators out there thinking about.
Don't do what we did.
Well, I mean, half this show is me sharing stuff I did wrong or learned from mistakes learned from. You guys also did something that I thought was pretty clever, and something that, let's be honest, like starting a new endeavor and getting a brand new IP off the ground is always a difficult thing. People, competing with like 50, 60, 70-year-old IPs that in comics is what a lot of us are doing, and it's tough to stand out. But one thing that I thought you all did was clever was you sort of printed up a preview book and then got it into a lot of people's hands even before the first Kickstarter campaign. Can you talk a little bit about what the idea there was and how you, like, that was something that you obviously invested in, but talk a little bit about what you did and why you did it.
So we discussed earlier on our first Kickstarter, our crossover reward was a print that we basically jammed out together.
Yeah.
And back then people weren't really doing crossover prints because people weren't running their campaigns together. And that kind of started gaining more traction. So when we did our second book, we did a crossover coin. We got 3D coins printed. John got that through Shapeways, and they were really neat. And we sat there I delayed the third Kickstarter, as we discussed, for a long time. So there was almost like a 2-year discussion of what would we do for issue 3. And we had no better ideas. And we were about to just go and make another coin that was just a different color. And then I said to John one day, I was like, you know what we should do? And I don't know what you're going to feel about this because it's not going to be cheap. And every great conversation starts like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if we do like a 14-page ashcan preview, and everybody that backs the book, they just get another free comic. Like I figured there couldn't be any better marketing for the book than to actually hold it in your hand.
Yep.
And look at it and read it and see what it's going to look like. And hopefully the people picked it up and started laughing and were like, I can't wait for this book.
Yeah, hopefully from the cover, because we made it a Kickstarter exclusive too. We have the Kickstarter logo on the cover. It's squashing a person. I mean, it was really, we went all out for that. Yeah. And I think it paid off because people came back and we've heard nothing but great things about it. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of times the best marketing tool that you can have is the comic itself, when you do a great job on it. And so I was glad to see that worked out for you. And then you had that, and the edition that I have here, this is a meaty read. How many pages did the first issue end up clocking in at?
64.
Yeah, it's a lot of value for that on that first launch. And so was it really important to just hit over deliver in your minds with that first Kickstarter?
It's always important for us to over deliver, but we decided together that we weren't going to limit the number of pages in the book. We were trying to make each issue self-contained. So you read an entire story, even though that there's a larger overarching story between them all. So every issue, we're not limited by 26 or 32 pages. It's the number of pages that it takes to tell the story. And the first issue just happened to work out that way. and we loved it. The discussion that we had was how do we make that a small trade? Do we make it a floppy? You know, and we discussed that back and forth, and we really decided, well, basically I decided, and then Ryan acquiesced, that we should just make them floppies because we want them all to look the same. We want, even though there may be different page counts, we want them all to be the same, so they fit in somebody's collection. And then at some point, years down the road, we hope to do a collected version that will have stories in it that aren't in any of these books, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Sync, which is the project that we have going now, but we did the last one that I just shipped out to backers, and then the Mr. Dig one shot last year. I actually really like the 64 page comic. Like,
Yeah.
it's I mean, it feels like a weighty read, but it's not. It doesn't, like, the alternative is something with a spine, but then it's the spine that's so thin you can't even write your get any copy on it, really.
Right.
And so yeah, I'm a big fan of just like a heftier single issue comic. They also still fit nicely in the bags and boards, and there is that collectible aspect to it that you don't always get with like the trade collections. So
Right.
yeah, I'm definitely a fan of that format, or just being able to, hey, let's not constrain ourselves. We're not trying to hit a necessarily a corporate instilled page count, or have to
Right.
leave a certain number of pages for ads, or this, that, and the other thing. So yeah, I'm digging what you're doing there. And another thing, just as a compliment for the first Kickstarter, is and the theme of going above and beyond. You kind of did that with the packaging, sending something and doing some things that was a little bit unexpected. Can you share what you did when you shipped Wurst Mayhem out to your backers?
Go ahead, John.
Oh, okay.
Because John's the logistics guy. So,
Yeah.
but you guys also got together to do the packing, right?
We did. We have so many ideas, and one of the things was that when Ryan shipped his Sunmaker projects, or even his art book, he would include these little tiny rubber ninjas that he called shipping ninjas that would protect the package on its delivery to the people. And so he came out, he said, you know, since our campaign is D&D themed, like it's like two buddies getting together to play a campaign. That's how the story unfolds. He said, what if we include a dice? What if we included dice in the box, just like I did the ninjas? And I thought that was a great idea. So we sourced out and found a place to get a bunch of 20-sided die. And then I didn't tell Ryan, but Ryan came up with this idea that we should create a label, because we play with Wurst, the main character's name, all the time. And he came up with the idea of creating the label that says worst unboxing ever. So we wanted people to share that as a hashtag. So I created that label, and then I didn't tell Ryan, but then I created the label on the inside of the book, inside of the package, that has the dice attached to it, that wants you to roll for it's basically a Constitution saving throw. You're trying to make sure that you are sane enough to read this book, right? And so that was in there. It says, you know, before you begin, roll your Constitution saving throw and add your modifier. You know, and the dice is connected there. So anybody that's into D&D or peripherally understands it knows what that is. Then I had this idea that we wanted eventually, in a collected version, to have this chronicler that would be chronicling the lives or recording the lives of Wurst Mayhem. So I created this letter by this character named Giovanni Mendacious, which, if anybody pays attention, Giovanni is Johnny in Italian, and Mendacious means liar, so it's Johnny Liar. But anyway, and he writes this letter that we included in an envelope. And then I had bought, like 2 years ago, when we first had this idea, I bought a wax seal thing to create. And so it just started all coming together. So we have a black envelope that has the comic and the letter in it. It has a black, the envelope's black. It has a gold wax seal on it that has Wurst Mayhem logo on it. We include a lot of bubble wrap. It has the label in there that has the dice attached. And we want these deliveries to be meaningful, have value, and people talk about them. We want them to remember our campaign. We're fighting, like you said, we're not just fighting against legacy properties. We're actually vying for a space, not that we want to compete with our other creative friends, but we want to stand out. We want our project to stand out in people's minds. They get our books and they know it's going to be a great book. They know they're going to have this amazing packaging, and it's going to be a lot of value for a little bit of money.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sort of the last thing that they're going to remember before the next launch. So I always think that's a great way to handle things, and something that you can really lean into and theme up around, and it reinforces, as you said, the brand. So very cool.
Right.
So, I mean, it sounds like you guys have your marching orders in terms of what's next for the series. You're already plotted out through issue 6, and we'll be, working on this pretty steady. But do you have ideas for Commonwealth Comics, or goals for Commonwealth Comics beyond the Wurst and Mayhem series? Or is that, John, you'd said you like to be a one focus, but do you see this branching out into, anything beyond comics? Or are there spinoffs or other ideas that you think you're going to incorporate?
Yes to all, right?
Yes to all. Yeah. So we have source books planned that we want to eventually have as either rewards or their own Kickstarter. Maybe we're not sure yet. So we have a number of different books planned. We have a recurring character in the book that's going to have his own spin-off series. And we're not out of the, we've discussed briefly about other properties, maybe not even our own. We haven't really gotten that far yet, because we're just starting out. But we have talked about, our whole focus is creator-owned comics. That's our focus. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that we own, but that it's creator-owned.
And would the creators have to live also in Pennsylvania?
Well, we haven't really gotten that far yet, but we know a lot of creators in Pennsylvania.
Good comic scene in the PA.
Oh yeah,
we got kids too, so there's that.
Yeah. And I'm curious, now that you've had the opportunity to get out there and pitch this in person, how has the sort of convention reaction been so far to Wurst and Mayhem? And has it been fun to try different angles, different aspects of your pitch? What have you been seeing that actually that really resonates with people? I have to get into like the Morning Joe habit of saying the name first and then making my long statement / question so that you guys always know who to think. So Ryan, maybe kick us off there.
Yeah, like a lot of the people at the show just saw the cover and wanted to look at it. And it really kind of did it on its own. One of the things that I really pushed for early on in the book was I told John I wanted to put Spot UV on the cover. And we didn't tell anybody. Like, this was like so tight-lipped that nobody knew about it. So like if you look on the cover, like, it's really kind of hard to see because it's not actually part of the image. And we've never seen anybody do that. So we wanted it to look like it was a magical effect surrounding the characters.
Can you show that again? Hold that up.
Yeah.
So what did you actually spot UV?
So they're magical symbols that surround the characters.
Oh, okay. So it's just like a clear rune or something?
It's a clear rune. So you can't, if you just glance at it, you can't see it. But when the light hits it, it picks it up, and it's very clear. The challenge was to get them around the characters and to line up when there's no artwork, right? There's actually no art that they line up with. And it was just a really cool idea because, the runes would just be these magical symbols that appeared in the air anyway. And so that was kind of the whole idea. And when people stop and look at the cover, that's one of the first things they see. The light hits and they're like, wait a minute, did I see something on the cover? And they pick it up and then they're looking at it. And that is what we want. We want people to pick it up. And because we know that once they pick it up and they look at it, they're going to dig it because Ryan's colors are just amazing.
It's such a unique book. Like we have on the inside, we have like it's a little branding that goes around every page.
Yeah.
And we've never seen anything quite like that. And I will never flat the book just because of that. But it's so unique. And when people pick it up and look at it, it just becomes an experience. And pretty much everybody that started flipping through it, they were just into it. We didn't even really have to do much pitching. And there was also a lot of kids at the show we were recently at. We were like, it's not really.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It is not a kid-friendly book.
Yeah, and it's probably a little tough because your art feels very accessible, John, to to all ages, and then it's like maybe the blood and guts and the F bombs. Let's
yes,
be careful.
The irreverent language.
Yeah, have a lollipop, kid, instead. Well, awesome, man. I mean, this is it's fun to see something new come together, something that you're both really excited to be working on, and something that people are reacting to. So excited to have you back on Kickstarter this month to get it out there. As we sort of bring this one to a close, can I get a tip from each of you for the creators out there who are thinking about maybe partnering up with someone and either, whether it be starting a new co-created book or a publishing company? Like, what's one tip that creators should think about or should know before they go jump with both feet in? Let me start with John and
of course.
over to Ryan.
One tip that I would give
it could be a do or it could be a don't.
Yeah, well, so I know that there's a lot of people that may say don't work with a friend, right? Because but I would say that if you're going to partner up with somebody, you need to, I'll use some words that you use all the time: know, like, and trust. And the biggest key to this business, especially because we have a joint account to handle all the funding, is that you got to have somebody that you trust implicitly. So I think that's the key to any good, successful business relationship, especially in the creative field.
Definitely an important piece of the puzzle. Ryan, you got anything for us?
I would say just make sure you're having conversations. This wasn't just something that I drove up to his house and I was there and we're like, hey, let's just start an LLC. Like, we had talked about this probably for like, I would say it was most likely almost close to 2 years.
Yeah,
we've had a lot of conversations of what that would involve, how we would do it, stuff like that. Do we want to do it?
Right.
And then waiting for a little bit, be like, remember when we talked about this? Are you sure you still want to do that?
Yeah.
And we made sure that it was something we were both on board with. And it makes total sense. I just feel like having somebody that you can work with makes it so much more worthwhile. I'm sure everybody that does comics out there knows how awesome it is when you open up your email and you get like that new page or a new piece of artwork or a new cover, right? Like it's
Yeah.
exciting. And just having somebody that you know is just as excited about the stuff you're working on is so awesome. And it makes like the whole creative thing, like you never feel like you're alone, and you can't wait to tell somebody about it, and like you know exactly who you're going to first.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, does make it so much more fun. Well, the project is Wurst Mayhem, and before we wrap up, I want you guys to each give me what's one, whether it be an add-on or a pledge level or something just cool that you're doing for this campaign that you want to just shine a quick spotlight on before we wrap things up. Ryan, what do fans need to know about, or what are you most excited about bringing into the world here?
So this one, I pushed John. I said I really wanted to try to do a metal cover because one, the logo is covering up some of the treasure golem, so it would be a virgin cover. But just the fact that it's a coin golem and it would be metal, like I don't know, it sounds very, very on point. Like I think it's pretty cool, and we're gonna do a very limited run on that. Like we're planning only for about 10 of them. And if only 3 of them sell on the Kickstarter, like there's going to be like 3 in existence, and that's going to be it. So like this thing might be super hard to come by.
Yep.
Yeah, those medals are always cool.
Yep.
And John, you got something?
The thing that I like the most is a little bit higher tier, and that's the RPG figure. We have a.
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask about that. How. So tell us about this figure that you're offering.
Oh, so it is a standard size role playing figure. We designed it in Hero Forge. On our first campaign, we did a companion figure, which was the 2 of them together, Wurst and Mayhem together. In this particular campaign, we just did Wurst. And Ryan did all the coloring on that, created the theme for how she looks. I mean, it's just spot on. It's amazing. And I just dig it a lot. I really like little figurines to begin with. And so having this on there, we plan to release a RPG figurine miniature for every campaign. And at some point we'll even have some possibly role-playing pages of some sort for people to play the characters. We're working with some people to create that now. So and it did really well. The last campaign, we got a lot of there was a lot of people who liked it. We there was like 15 figures or 12 figures, something like that. It just seems to be a really good point. So we're hoping to see more on this campaign.
Yeah, it's really cool. Those minis are.
Yeah. Oh, and you can also get it as an add-on if you want.
Yep.
You can also get it painted or unpainted. So in the add-ons, we actually have one that's actually just, you can customize it any way you want to. So
very cool. And it looks like your cover image sold, or the Kickstarter image sold, which is
the Kickstarter image sold, the cover image sold. It's just amazing. People.
John was very snotty. I think he was hoping it was going to be left over at the end so he could hang it up.
Yeah, I wanted the cover image. I really did, but we decided that we were going to put it because it's just an amazing cover. That coin golem is just, that whole page. Yeah. When Ryan came up with that, it was just inspired. It was so funny. And I dug it. I really wanted it. I really wanted it on my wall. I have a lot of stuff. I still wanted it. Yeah. But somebody snatched it up. So
well, that and just that's another awesome, bonus tip. I think that there's a lot of creators where they're trying to put together their Kickstarter pages, and even if they don't have a really good Kickstarter formatted page, they'll just kind of squeeze something in there from the comic, and it doesn't always work the best. But if you can design something specifically for this aspect ratio and then sell the original art as a pledge level, lo and behold, like that makes it well worth the time and extra effort to create that thing. So definitely a cool thing for you to do, and makes for a great image.
Yeah.
Well, gents, it's always a pleasure. I'm excited to see the new book out there, and I know that you'll be working on this for a long time to come, and I'm excited to see it continue to grow and Commonwealth Comics continue to grow. So thanks for sharing the story with me and everybody out there in Comics Launch Land.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Tyler.
Tyler. Appreciate being here. Thank you.
It wouldn't
problem at
exist without you.
How about it?
Well, hey, it's the connections and the seeing people come together and find artists, find letters, find publishers, find editors. It's and oftentimes seeing so many familiar faces in anthologies from the Comics Launch group is definitely warms my cold heart. So I appreciate y'all saying that and being a big part of the community and being so helpful, just giving that knowledge back because lo and behold, it's 10 years after 2014, and now you guys know so much about making comics, launching them, and getting them out into the world. And so I know you continue to give that back as well. Thanks so much, guys. And everyone else out there watching the stream, we appreciate you. Can't wait to see what y'all launch next. Take care.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.